Hello and welcome to another match show, sports show. Today we've got the Leeds, Liverpool versus Leeds. I've got it the wrong way around, haven't I? It's a big game. After 16 years in the doldrums, Leeds are back in the big time, and Liverpool, after being in the doldrums for 30 years, finally won the Premiership. So couldn't have asked for a better game for the Leeds' first game to be actually at Anfield. Today I'm joined in the studio by Mohammed Salim, long time Leeds fan, suffering for years and years and having to put up with. And then on my left hand side, I've got Mohammed Refan, who claims that he was one when Liverpool last won the title, which was 30 years ago. He claims to be a 31-year-old. So he must have been about 20 when he, like Pakistan's Iftikhar Ahmed, he must have been 20 when he started watching the football. So, or when it was Liverpool won. So today's game, we're going to get views of both of these guys. We'll kick off with Leeds because Leeds, after 16 years of being in the doldrums, are finally back. How do you feel, Salim, today?
How do I feel today? Well, actually, I was talking to at Mikara MOT on Num Lane, and there was an English gentleman there, he was a Scouser. So I says to him, I says, are you a true red or a true blue? He says, I'm a true red. So I told him, I'm a Leeds United fan.
Was there a fight?
No fight. I says to him, I says, if you look at last season, Liverpool against Southampton, Liverpool against against Bournemouth, Liverpool against
Watford.
I says, I was watching Sky Sports the other day, and the title, Liverpool against Leeds, that actually shows something, how big Leeds are. And for me, the answer to your question, obviously, first when a child is born, plus you get married. For me, it's been 16 years of agony. 16 years of agony, right? And I feel so happy that Leeds are there. That Leeds are absolutely there, you know.
Why was the agony so painful? Because
Well, the agony
you're
was...
surrounded by, I'm presuming, yes, your son is a Liverpool fan.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's a Liverpool fan. The agony is, Masoudra, basically, I mean, obviously we were too young in the 60s. I can't even remember the 60s. But when I came home from Pakistan, all you could hear was Bremner, Giles, Hunter, Harvey, right? Basically, that Leeds team of the 70s, absolutely brilliant. And I just felt in love with Leeds, you know. And for me, when they went down in 1981 under Alan Clark, as a 16-year-old, I was absolutely in tears. And, you know, yeah, match a day with that Leeds, it's not the same. It's not the same.
Well, at least they're back now in the big time, and they're playing against the teams that the rivalry began in 1965 with Liverpool winning the FA Cup. The 60s side that were saying, you know, Bill Shankly, Don Revie's side. You were born when the last time.
Yeah, a few years later.
A few years later, and 30 years later, they actually won a Premiership, which is the first Premiership title. I know most people think football actually stopped, began only when Premiership started, but obviously Liverpool had won 18 titles before that. As a Liverpool fan, how do you feel this season?
I feel quite excited. Obviously the last couple of years have been real good fun to be a Liverpool supporter after being on the perch, for want of a better word, for a number of years. And it's quite fitting, isn't it, that we've got a team like Leeds who've been sort of behind the scenes, and really there should have been a Premiership team, you know, in terms of the size of the place and the support, etc., for the last 15 years. Yet for Liverpool, it's been 30 years in the waiting. We've had some successful teams over the years, but the big one was the Premiership. And it's quite interesting, even though we won the European Cup on a number of occasions, still Liverpool supporters were always reminded that
The Holy Grail was
the Holy Grail was
Premiership
was the
is the one everybody should
so I think it was a big pressure off the team and the supporters when they did actually finally win it. I thought the year before they were very, very unlucky. And they always say winning isn't about everything, but I think in this case it was. And then there are other little sort of side issues into it with the points that they won, the 96 points. Then obviously there's been a couple of disasters in Liverpool with the 96 killed in. So it's you know, I don't know whether it's all fate or what have you, but long may it continue. And it should be quite exciting, this game with Leeds.
So are you looking forward to having Leeds today across there?
Yeah, as I said, I mean, in terms of the history of the club's, Leeds is a big club. Not as big as Liverpool, of course.
How do you react to that? He's just made a statement, Leeds are not as big as Liverpool.
Well, if my son, Sakib, he asked me the same question. I mean, obviously, one's an Arsenal supporter and one's a Liverpool supporter.
Yeah.
And I talked to him about Leeds. I says, Leeds are a massive club. Leeds are a massive club, right? I mean, if you look at, it's financially, right, they're nothing compared to Bournemouth or Watford, right, because they've got the, payments. But history-wise, fan base, Leeds are a massive club. I mean, Chelsea, Man City, Chelsea were a small club in the 70s. Man City, up in 15 years ago, they were in third division. But unfortunately, well, Leeds have gone wrong, is right. Obviously, they've had chairmen like Ken Bates, they've had the Italian, idiot, Cellino, basically. But now, with this new, Italian, Razzorini, stability at the club, right? And yes, Liverpool are a massive club. If you look at I'll say the top 4 clubs in England, Liverpool, Man United, Leeds, probably Arsenal. Top 4 clubs, history-wise, fan base, etc.
Depends on your definition of massive club, isn't it, really? If you go by results or title wins, etc., then there is a bit of a differential.
Yeah.
Support base, yes, Leeds as a city, it should be up there. But as I said, it depends on how you define massive over a period of time. Leeds were successful for a short period of time in the late 60s, early 70s.
Leeds actually 90s. Won the Premiership. What was the first division last off that 91? So they've got 29 years. They've been waiting
above their weight on one occasion, like Leicester. Every so often you do get this. I'm talking consistency. They were not punching above the weight.
They actually played quite well during the 90s. I think up until 2003. So for a Liverpool fan, say that listen.
But
I want to know is right.
The issue is the success has resulted in where they've been since then. Do you define success by big spending?
Well, that's Chelsea and Man United. They do that, and
and it's about taking risk, isn't it? Really, and when you take that risk, you've got to sustain it. Then, don't you? Really, Chelsea can sustain that over a particular period of time.
Sugar daddy, mate.
Leeds did have success, but obviously the impacts of that then has been, and hopefully it will be because it'll be good. It'll be good for the region, and it'll be good for football.
Yeah. I mean, one other question I want to ask is, they all said that Man United fans, which we all agree, don't actually come from Manchester anyway. They all go out of town. Why have we got so many Desis supporting Scousers? Where the hell is that link come from?
Well, my own story is, in the late 70s.
Now you're owning up to the
our local team was Bradford City, but the league team, the team to aspire to, the first thing I remember seeing on television was Liverpool, and the Dalglishes, and then the Rushes that came in later on, and you just had a love for the club that just sort of grew, I suppose, in the same way as what Celine was talking about in terms of Leeds.
Yeah, that's right.
So at that point in time, perhaps it was a bit after Leeds for me. Grew up and you got to know the players from a distance. Black and white television in them days.
Liverpool played in. Those of you watching in black and white, Liverpool are in red.
Yeah. So that's where it came from for me. Bradford's always been in my heart, but in terms of the Premiership club, for want of a better word, or the league team outside Bradford, for me it's been Liverpool, and it's just grown from there. And it's a worldwide club, a bit unlike Man United. It isn't just sofa fans. There is something a bit more there for Liverpool fans.
When did you fall in love with Leeds? When was the first game? Can you remember the first game you ever watched?
First game, live, Leeds.
Not just even when you actually watch it maybe on television, where was the first connection?
Well,
with Leeds?
I came from Pakistan with my eldest brother Rashid. I think it was in 1970. So at that time, obviously, we had small black and white TVs. So at that particular time, not 70s, right, you had Muhammad Ali, the great Muhammad Ali on TV. You had Leeds United on TV as well. I mean, if you look at if you compare the media and the press, what they're doing now, like last season, Aston Villa went up, Sheffield United went up, and Norwich went up, right? Now, if you look at Sky, in my estimation, right, they've done about 4 or 5 documentaries on Leeds. Sky have done 4 or 5 documentaries on Leeds. And yesterday on BBC News, Hugh Edwards comments, 16 years, Leeds are back. Elite club in the 70s. The answer to your question, Leeds didn't win much in the 70s. Yes, I agree with you. They seem to always finish second, right? They won, I think...
they were always the bridesmaids.
Yeah, 60s they won a championship in 1973. 74, right, 74. But they were tagged as a dirty Leeds. Dirty Leeds, right? But I might be biased, but I can't see a team that every single player, from David Harvey to Alan Clark, 11, 12, 15 players, household names, international players. I can't see any team, even your team, Liverpool, and Man United team, that every single player was a household name. You know, every single player.
But the thing is, football's changed over the years.
It's changed,
the Premiership,
changed.
because Sky being involved in Sky
Yeah.
have changed everything.
Yeah.
So in terms of Sky, that's made the difference. The Premiership has changed. In terms of the big clubs today, right? How are we? What sort of things are? Who's going to be your main man? Do you think your players are going to freeze up at Anfield?
Well, basically, I mean, obviously, it's a tough start for Leeds. It's a very, very tough start for Leeds, right? But obviously, other day, Jermaine Beckford on Sky Sports yesterday, who's your tip for the title? He said Leeds.
Did he?
He said Leeds. He said Leeds. And Mileski said it's Liverpool, right? But obviously for me as a Leeds fan, right, it's not a case of Leeds qualifying the Champions League, Leeds finishing in the 6th. We have to be, honest and say, look, right, if Leeds actually survive in the Premier Division for 3 or 4 years and then build up on that, right, then get that financial stability, right, then they can compete with the top 6. But I can see Leeds, if they stay up in 3 or 4 years, they'll be there, they'll be back again. You know.
The thing about the Premiership is it's a marathon, isn't it? It isn't a sprint.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's taken, it needs to be looked at. Obviously there will be setbacks, but it's how the teams overcome those setbacks, back on the back of 1 or 2 losses. Not everybody can go a whole season without losing a game.
Well, Liverpool actually lost 1 game in the season before, and last season as well. They lost obviously
so
a bit more.
Strong teams, and for a team like Leeds, it is a bit of a step up, and it remains to be seen. From what I hear, they are playing some quality football. In the sort of Premiership sort of mould, it sounds like they're more suited to the Premiership as opposed to the Championship. So they've done well to come up. And it's whether they can play with the different styles. But I think sometimes it helps teams coming up as well, because a lot of the other teams, although they do the due diligence on the team, they don't always know the background or the detail of how they're going to sort of operate. So I think Leeds will do okay this year, and if they can finish somewhere mid-table, I think that for me that'll be a success for them. Obviously there is pressure on us now because everybody wants to beat us. Everybody wants to knock us off our perch.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Well, that's probably was the case when Leeds were in the second division or Championship.
Yeah.
That it was the biggest club, and for everybody else it was a cup final, and for them to actually go and beat Leeds at Elland Road was an achievement. So, in terms of success, where do you actually see, as a kind of 2 things? Either where do you realistically see Leeds happening and finishing? And where would you like them as a dream to finish?
Well, if you obviously compare last season, right, when 2 seasons ago, Marcelo Bielsa took over, Leeds were sort of a mid-table side. To be fair, mid-table side, mid-table side, right. And this guy's his mystique, his magic, his style of football. I still don't know how he's got Leeds up. 10 points difference between Leeds and next team. 10 points difference, right? Yeah. West Brom, that's right. So basically, right, he's bought 2 players now at the moment, right? He's bought the Rodrigo, the Spanish international. He's bought Robin Roch from Leipzig. And I think they're going for a couple of there's another Argentinian that they're going for, basically. So I think Leeds about 3 players short. 3 players short, right, basically to finish mid-table. But for Leeds, right, I'll be happy, right? Obviously, the top 6 are top 6. Then after that, right, it's same, right? I'll be happy if Leeds finish in mid-table, survive 2-3 years, get that financial stability back again, right? And then they can talk about Champions League, you know, getting in the top 6.
Where do you see Liverpool?
I think we've got enough quality and enough depth, even though we haven't really signed many players, although there is some interest in 1 or 2 players, Thiago being one. I think with the strength of depth we've got in the team, I would be disappointed if we didn't win it again, but it will be difficult.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. Okay, let's get to the bottom of it now. Final thing we're going to do is, just before, because it's not far off from the kick-off time, we're going to get you to predict the score, and after the game we can come back and see if any of us got it right, or we're going to be hiding in the cupboards. Right, since you're a Leeds fan, and we'll give you a chance, because in terms of Leeds' first game, what do you think is going to be the score? Predict your score for Leeds.
Obviously, the heart says Leeds. The heart says Leeds, right? I still think Leeds are going to give a few sides problems this season. But it's Liverpool, Anfield. So obviously...
There's no crowd, though.
There's no crowd. So
I think that may help.
There's no crowd, right, basically, right? But obviously, my heart says Leeds. But obviously, my brain says it'll be 3-1 to Liverpool.
3-1 to Liverpool.
Yeah.
And Stefan, Liverpool man?
I think he's a very wise man. His prediction is spot on, and one thing we will agree with is I think it'll be 3-1 myself as well.
So from the 2 wise men to the unwise presenter. Well, I'm a Leeds fan, as you all know, big Leeds fan. First game I actually saw was 1974, the Charity Shield, what was called at the time, the big fight between Keegan and Bremner, and so I fell in love with Leeds, the losers. And in a way, I've been a loser ever since. So we've gone through hardship, a lot of tough times and stuff. But we did have, great players and stuff. And I think one of the most memorable things I've just heard this morning is absolutely fantastic that I was listening to on the radio, that they actually said when Leeds United actually won the first division back in 1969, they won it at Anfield with a 1-1 draw. Right. And Don Review, and when the team actually went back into the dressing room, he said to the Leeds, go in front of the Kop. And apparently, he said, sure, boss? He said, yeah, no, go in front of the Kop. He says, we took the team right in front of the Kop. There's 27,000 crowd in the Kop, 27,000 of them, and they went pin drop silent. And for about 30 seconds, and then for the next 7 minutes, they sang songs and called them champions and applauded. And he says, that is fantastic for a club such as Liverpool. So in a way, I can see why a lot of people have got affinity to Liverpool. The fact that they're a family club, and they always appreciate any good team. And I think that's one of the best things is at Anfield that you don't get that in certain clubs. There's a lot of racism. There's lots of hatred. The clubs, the actually between the fans and stuff. But on that, I mean, being the unwise person that I am, I'm going to say my heart says it's going to be 1-1. Well, my head says 1-1 and my heart says 2-0 to Leeds. So on that prediction, we're all going to go and watch the game and be back after that and see whether any of us have to eat a few humble pies or we're going to be smiling. I think the fan's got a big smile on his face. You're a bit serious. I'm a nutcase anyway, so when it comes to it, being the presenter, I'm going to take my hat off and say, here it is. If it's 2-0 to Leeds, I will go for that. I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, we'll meet you a cup of coffee then.
Yeah, you can get a cup of coffee.
Yeah, bold prediction.
After the game.
Bold prediction, 2-0 to Leeds.
Yeah, 2-0 to Leeds.
Hope you're right.
You've got to be behind your team.
Hope you're right.
Yeah, I'm going to think, and I'm going to stick my neck out and say Rodriguez is going to score, the Spanish international. On that note, we shall be back.